Hey, the wheat that we top dressed in that earlier video is now ready to harvest. This is July 1st, and you can tell it's gotten nice and tall, and it's been kind of a tough season, but we're still expecting a halfway decent crop out of this. I don't think it's going to be a total disaster. I was kind of worried about it as cold and wet as everything was. But here's the head of wheat. This is what we call a bearded wheat. Not all of it's going to have these long, basically hairs on it sticking out. Those would be, non-bearded wheats. But what you want is for it to be, dry enough to thresh, and you can kind of run it in your hand, and you can actually see, some of these wheat seeds coming out of it. And I dropped a few of them. But here in a minute, I drove the semi truck over here. We're waiting on the combine to catch up. The truck's up on the hill. It won't make it around the corner of this driveway to get down to this field. So it's on up the hill, and we got our grain cart right there, ready to haul the grain from the combine and ferry it up to the semi truck. Yeah. So the header for this machine that we're using today is 35 feet wide. So obviously you can't drive that down the road, so it's got to come separate, on this cart behind this truck, and we're going to get it hooked up to our combine and then start cutting. So real quick, if you're interested in the mechanics of this, we've got our cutter bar here, and these knife sections will move back and forth and actually cut against the guard. So if a stem is, going in, this is going back and forth really fast in a seesaw type motion. But if you're a stem, you come through, that thing comes, cuts you off, you fall into the header, and this auger drags everything to the center, and this black piece up here, this is called a reel, and that'll be rotating and pulling those tall stems in. So it kind of leans them in, so when they're cut, they fall onto the header and are drawn into the center. And then these fingers are going to push it into what will be immediately behind it, that feeder house on the combine. That'll be attached, right to this header here in a second. That gets drawn into the machine. There you go. Turn around, watch it come in the hopper here. Very cool. So we're still adjusting things. So, we'll get this hopper cleaned up. This is the first farm this combine has been in this year with wheat. So, still doing some fine tuning. The machine's having to get shined up a little bit. Might be a little green out here. Got a little angry, but basically this thing is a big factory on wheels. So you draw it in the front, and it goes through a rotating cylinder and a concave and threshes it, and then goes through a bunch of blowers and screens and separates the wheat from the chaff. And the straw is being cut, and we've got that big fat windrows behind us so they can come in later and bale the straw. So it's kind of fun being the guy shooting the video right now, not the guy having to worry about making all the adjustments on the machine at the beginning of wheat season, because there is well, I can show you a quick shot of that. You're only seeing part of it. It doesn't show every function at once, but there's everything from like fan adjustments to screen adjustments to, concaves and cylinder speed. You're doing all that while trying to watch all this and not pick up any rocks, and at the same time kind of looking in the back so you know how to adjust your screens and stuff like that. Once we get out of the outside edge of this field, we'll get that cleaned up, and that grain will be looking better coming in. So just, man, a whole lot of stuff going on. So you got all that, plus monitoring the regular stuff you do on any piece of equipment, your engine speed and all that fun stuff, oil pressure. All right, so we're going to test our moisture here. This is just a handheld moisture tester because it's a good idea. Now with wheat, to keep from getting docked on at the elevator, you want it at 13.5% moisture. So this tester is easy to use. You just fill it up, and we put the cap back on. It's just a screw-on cap like you'd have on a thermos or something like that. And we hit the test button, and we'll let it tell us what we got. And of course, it showed up at 14.5 a second ago, but I just wanted to make sure we got the whole thing here on camera. All right, 14.2. So a little bit wet, but we're at the very outside edge of the field. So we got a decision to make. We might just have to wait a day. It's supposed to be 90-some degrees out here for a couple more days, and that should dry things up. Or it could just be this little patch that we're in. Tends to be a little bit wetter sometimes than the bigger field over there. So we may just go ahead and run. Trying to figure that out. But the straw did feel a little bit wet, and that's not good for baling. So it'll have to dry out anyway. So that's one of those calls farmers got to make. It's always a compromise. And if conditions were always ideal, everybody would be doing this. But probably the best call would be to give this a day of baking out in the sunshine, and that should really turn things around a lot for us. Okay, so while I have a few of the screens off to change a couple things, we'll talk about how this works real quick. So we saw the header in the video running. Remember, that pulls everything to the center, and that goes up to our feeder house. So now we're at the feeder house, and it's a little tough to see, but you've got these bars here, and they're going to just rotate around, and all that's on a chain, and then they will drag the material up through this part of the combine. It actually drags it in on the bottom side of that. I backed up a little so you can see, that's a feeder house. It's that drum. We've got some stuff in the way, but that's going to be sitting, down in this area, rotating, pulling material up and into the machine. All right, now this stuff's cool. It's like factory on wheels. I'm starting off back here so you can see where I'm going. So feeder house, and normally you can't see this stuff. We've got some shields pulled off, but this material gets pulled inside of here, and these are really tough to save. This is your concaves. So we have this screen, and then we have a rotor behind that, and you can adjust the gap between this screen and what I think of as a cylinder, because I grew up around older combines, but that's going to rotate through there and start threshing the grain out. And stuff's going to fall down. And of course, you might not get all of it on the first go. Further back on the rotor, what did we call this part?
This is your single-tine separation system.
Single-tine separation system.
Not a rotor. John Deere hates rotors.
Yeah, John Deere doesn't like. I don't want to tell you that they use a rotor. I guess they started doing that again, or finally. But Case came up with the rotor combine, or somebody other in Case came up with the rotor combine. I don't know exactly, but I know John Deere didn't. And then, so for a long time they said they weren't going to have one, and then they did, but they weren't going to call it that. So anyway, single tine separation system. That's going to, continue to sort things out. Stuff can kind of fall down on these beaters, and it can go back through these screens. There's a fan on the underside of this that's going to blow air through and separate the chaff out. And if it doesn't get separated out the first time, the idea is that it'll fall through these screens and get run back through the system again, and hopefully you catch it, that time around. All right, so now we're actually, up inside the back of the combine here. You can see those, 4 little augers. You saw those a minute ago from the side, and we've got our screens right there that you saw from the top, and more screens here that you see. We can actually adjust the angle of these to open them up and let more stuff fall through, or you can tighten them down to have it kick more stuff out the back, and it just kind of depends on the crop you're running and how this is threshing. When you're all done, we call this the discharge feeder, and that is going to kick all of the large stuff out, at the very end of the process. And then move around here. Now, these are spreaders, and that's just going to scatter that residue out, evenly behind the combine as you're going. Normally those would be down, and this would be, perpendicular to the ground. They're folded up right now, partly for like windrow and wheat, but the straw was actually a little bit damp and the grain's dry, which is kind of unusual. So today I think we're actually going to run the spreaders, and the guys doing the straw are going to let that dry out a little bit and then rake the straw in the windrows. There's a little bit of straw baling going on here in the distance from some stuff we cut yesterday. And that's one of the cool things about wheat is you can kind of get 3 crops off of it. You can get your wheat, and then the straw that's left behind, the stems of the wheat, can be baled up, and then this can be also planted to double crop beans. So you got your wheat, your straw, and then the double crop beans, which won't produce like a first crop soybean, but still it lets you like squeeze maybe a little more income out of it. Wheat's also cool from a cash flow perspective because it gives you a little bit of money coming in the summer, whereas like corn and soybeans, all that is coming in the fall, or you could store it and haul it in later, but it's harvested and primarily hauled in the fall. All right, so we got some help adjusting the combine. It's Levi. He's a good boy. Actually, he's like an old man. He's like 10 years old. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Combine's mad at us, dude. You got more than that. You'll do. You having fun out here today, Sawyer?
Yep.
Yep. Good times. All right, so just a bit of safety while I'm back here. I can't help myself, but you don't want to stand right behind these things, especially close. You know, the operator may not see it and he may have to back up, you know, if he runs out of room on the truck. You know, same's true if somebody's unloading, you know, doing this on a road sometime. If they had wet field conditions, you don't want to nose the car right up behind one of these carts. I mean, if they had to back up, it's just gonna smash you. Now this one does have a camera, so we can actually watch, and you can see him, he's actually moving backwards right now. So that was very timely. I couldn't have planned that better, but it's just not a good place to be or stand. So you want to stay off to the side and stay safe. Or if you come up on one in a car sometime, I've seen people unloading on roads before, they'll leave plenty of room. One more quick PSA, public service announcement here. Now, this grain looks especially fun for like kids to climb in and play on, and the trucks look like they're fun to play around, and man, just, you know, don't do that. You can get buried in this stuff. You can drown in grain really quickly. And you saw how fast this thing was dumping. You know, imagine if you're playing in an empty truck or one that's close to empty, playing on a pile, and that thing just comes up over top. So keep a close eye. I know most of my audience is older kids, but you know, keep a close eye on your younger siblings, stuff like that. Anytime you're around this kind of equipment, there have been farm accidents, and farms are dangerous places, so be aware of your surroundings and think of what could happen and try to watch out and prevent those things, because stuff does happen sometimes. So we just want to keep a close eye and look out for each other out here while we're getting after it. So I'm in the grain cart right now, and this is, now the light's shining on it, so it's tough to see, but you know, that screen right there is the camera that kind of shows me what's back behind this thing, or gives me an idea. And we're actually on a different farm now. We've got our combine out here running and harvesting wheat. Sawyer's in the cab checking that out. And I've been dragging this thing around and keeping the grain away from the combine so they can keep running. But thanks for watching. I hope you guys learned a little bit about this video. I mean, this is agriculture, something that I enjoy getting to share with people. And you know, there's different ways of doing this, and I know some of you guys maybe have your own operations or around some different stuff, and that's really cool. If you're doing something that you would like to be in one of these videos, you know, and you're one of my students or somebody that knows me can get a hold of me, you know, make that contact, and we'll maybe set something up. I mean, that'd be kind of cool. I don't have a lot of access right now to livestock especially, so that'd be kind of neat if you're doing something interesting on your livestock farm and you want me to come out and put something on my channel to share with my ag classes. But that's it. Thanks for watching. Until next time.